I wanted to do a video on what we can learn about the mind from the recent election and the debates and the emotions and the divide that people are experiencing here in the US. And so we know, well, cognitive science, anthropology knows that the mind is about a 70,000-year-old program in our heads. The problem is that your average person is completely unaware of this program. In fact, the biggest mistake that so many make is that they think that this program is who they are. They mistake it for their true self. Except, of course, those who study um, Advaita Vedanta or Buddhism. These individuals, the mind as a kind of separate false reality is just, I mean, it's the core of so much of their teachings. But as I said, in anthropology, we know that human beings uh, as we know them. I mean, we're Homo sapiens. That's our version of being human. But 100,000 years ago, there wasn't just us on the planet. There was at least 6 other versions of humans walking the planet with us. And then it was around 70,000 years ago where Homo sapiens got this big, kind of supercharged brain. And one of the talents, or, it's also the cause of much of our suffering, but at the time it was really useful, is that Homo sapiens had this skill, this kind of brain boost where they could conceptualize in categories and think in abstractions. And so think of something like a football game. I mean, this is a little stranger than people, I mean, we just take it for granted, but when you go to a football game, it's just a bunch of people on the field running around chasing or throwing a ball. But what this program did is it gave us the ability to create abstraction based on kind of trivialities. Like, if people have the same color uniform, we grouped them all together. And then we're able to pit the two teams against each other. And, in the same way that we see us versus them. And the point is that, I mean, things like sports and football games, this shows us, and particularly the election shows us that the program is still running. The 70,000-year-old program is still running in our skulls, and so few of us are actually aware of this. Now, like, for example, on my street, it wasn't that uncommon to see a Trump sign right next to a Biden sign. And the interesting thing about this, of course, is when you think about how much these people share. They're in the same time period of history. They're in the same country. They're in the same part of the country. They're actually living on the same street next to each other. So they share about 99% of what we could call reality and their version of it, except this one difference. And the point is that that's what this mind is programmed to do. It's all programmed to focus on differences and then create a tension of us versus them based on those differences. And so what we conceive of as like Republican or Democrat or liberal versus conservative, these are just abstractions that the mind creates. Now you may say, wow, there are real differences and there are important things to debate and important things to discuss. That's absolutely true. I'm not saying anything about that or anything political. What I'm pointing out is that the mind is going to ignore all the things people have in common. It's going to focus on the differences, and it's going to actually make it look like, it's fighting that old struggle about 70,000 years ago. It's in a struggle for survival. And so it doesn't realize that there are important things to discuss. It's in that survival mode. And so what's going to happen is that when people who are caught up in mind and they start debating, they're going to go back to that ancient kind of survivalistic mode. And unfortunately, nothing or rarely anything gets accomplished in terms of really solving a debate. Now, it's absolutely true that if the aliens attacked, the mind is set up that all humans would unite. In other words, would take all these trivial abstract differences and they would be gone overnight, and we would conceptualize us as one group, and then they would be the enemy. But we can't wait for the aliens to attack, And so the point of the video is to help people recognize the mind, to help you feel that there is this old program running in your head that conceptualizes people with a real trivial difference. I mean, think about how real a football game can seem, and how, it's us versus them, and how everyone gets up and cheers, or they're really depressed when they lose. And all that's based on such really trivial differences that any other being could easily overlook, but we don't. And that's the way the mind is set. It's the way the mind functions. So I haven't done too many videos lately. I've been working. I'm almost finished with a new book that's coming out. I'll be talking a little bit about that, and so. But I always do read the comments. I don't always comment on them, but I'm interested to see what your take is on how the election kind of reveals the process of mind, and could it be this really ancient program that's driving what we feel as this divide? And if it is, then what do we do about it?